A hotel housekeeper found a stunning diamond ring hidden under a bed while cleaning a luxury suite. The ring was worth more than she'd earn in 10 years, and nobody would know if she kept it. What she did next shocked the wealthy owner and changed both their lives forever. Carmen Silva pushed her housekeeping cart down the hallway of the Grand Meridian Hotel, her 38 years showing in the tired lines around her eyes as she prepared to clean the presidential suite, the most expensive room in the five-star hotel where she'd worked for 12 years. Carmen was a single mother of 3, her husband having abandoned the family 5 years ago, leaving her to support her children on a housekeeper's modest salary, supplemented by occasional tips from guests who actually noticed her existence. As she vacuumed under the king-size bed in the suite's master bedroom, something glinted in the sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. A diamond ring of extraordinary size and brilliance, clearly worth a fortune. Carmen's hands trembled as she picked up the ring, her mind immediately calculating that this single piece of jewelry represented more money than she'd earn in a decade of scrubbing toilets and changing sheets. Her youngest daughter needed braces they couldn't afford. Her son's college fund was non-existent. Their apartment had a leaking roof the landlord refused to fix. And this ring could solve every financial problem, crushing her family. Nobody had seen her find it. The suite was empty, and the guest had already checked out hours ago. She could simply pocket it, claim ignorance if anyone asked, and transform her children's futures with one morally questionable decision that circumstances seemed to justify. But Carmen's mother had raised her with principles that poverty hadn't eroded, teachings about integrity being the only possession nobody could take from you, about character being defined by choices made when nobody's watching. Carmen looked at her reflection in the suite's mirror, imagining explaining to her children how they suddenly had money, teaching them that stealing was acceptable when you were desperate enough. She couldn't reconcile that lesson with the values she'd spent years instilling, that honesty mattered, that hard work had dignity, that shortcuts involving dishonesty ultimately cost more than they gained. Carmen carefully placed the ring in a small hotel envelope, sealed it, and took it directly to the manager's office, her voice steady despite the internal battle she'd just fought. "I found this ring in suite 1202. The guest must have dropped it. We need to return it to its owner." The manager, Jennifer Park, stared at the ring with astonishment that mirrored Carmen's initial reaction. This was clearly a ring worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, possibly more. She immediately checked the suite's guest records and contacted Isabella Moretti, the Italian businesswoman who'd stayed there, informing her that her ring had been found. Isabella, who'd been frantically searching for her late grandmother's heirloom engagement ring, broke down crying on the phone with relief, explaining the ring's sentimental value exceeded its substantial monetary worth, that losing her grandmother's ring had felt like losing her memory all over again. She insisted on returning immediately to the hotel to personally thank whoever had found it. Isabella arrived within the hour, her elegant appearance and obvious wealth marking her as someone from a completely different world than Carmen inhabited. When Jennifer introduced Carmen as the housekeeper who'd found and returned the ring, Isabella embraced her with genuine emotion that transcended their class difference. "You could have kept this. Nobody would have known. Why did you return it?" Carmen's answer was simple but profound. "Because it wasn't mine. Because I'm teaching my children that who we are matters more than what we have. Because doing the right thing when it's hard is the only way to live with yourself." Isabella stared at this woman who'd returned a fortune without hesitation, recognizing character that wealth couldn't buy and poverty couldn't destroy. Isabella asked Carmen about her life, learning about her 3 children, her financial struggles, her dreams of her kids attending college, her years of hard work that barely kept them afloat despite her best efforts. Then Isabella made a decision that changed Carmen's trajectory completely. She established a trust fund for Carmen's children's education, covering full college tuition and expenses for all 3. She paid off Carmen's debts, covered the medical expenses for her daughter's braces, and set up a foundation providing scholarships and support for children of hotel service workers who demonstrated academic promise. Additionally, she hired Carmen as the foundation's community liaison, tripling her salary and giving her meaningful work that honored rather than wasted her intelligence and integrity. But perhaps most importantly, Isabella told Carmen's story everywhere she went, using her platform to highlight the daily moral courage of people who maintained integrity despite crushing circumstances, who returned fortunes when keeping them would be understandable, who raised children with values that society's economic structure constantly tested. She became an advocate for living wages for service workers, arguing that people like Carmen shouldn't face impossible choices between ethics and survival, that a society requiring heroic virtue from its poorest members while offering them no path to stability was fundamentally unjust. Carmen's decision rippled beyond her family's transformation. The hotel created an integrity award in her name, bonusing employees who demonstrated exceptional honesty. Other guests, inspired by the story, began tipping service workers more generously and treating them with greater respect, recognizing the moral weight of decisions people in those positions faced constantly. Carmen's children grew up watching their mother honored for choosing integrity over expedience, learning that character creates opportunities money can't buy, that the respect earned through ethical choices matters more than shortcuts that compromise who you are. Years later, when Carmen's oldest daughter graduated from college and gave her valedictorian speech, she credited her mother's decision to return the ring as the defining lesson of her life. That who we are when nobody's watching determines who we become when everyone is. That integrity maintained during hardship creates foundation for genuine success, and that the values we refuse to compromise despite pressure become the legacy we leave that matters more than any inheritance. Carmen sat in the audience crying. Her journey from desperate housekeeper to respected community leader, proving that one honest decision in a moment of temptation can transform not just circumstances but demonstrate that character transcends class, that dignity exists independent of wealth, and that sometimes the most valuable thing you can give your children isn't money, but the example of living with integrity even when it costs you everything, knowing that the person you see in the mirror matters more than anything you could steal, and that teaching your children through actions rather than words creates the kind of wealth that compounds across generations in ways material inheritance never could.